which from was a cybersecurity threat, and there was an excellent collaboration. Also, we know when President Trump thanked Pakistan in that major speech before all this new crisis, when no one was expecting, maybe some of us were scared, maybe a new tweet from the president will come about Pakistan. But that time he surprised everyone pleasantly, thanking Pakistan for the cooperation on ISKT. Just one point that in introduction I want to emphasize is that there's this critique on Pakistan when we often hear, and this is linked to Pakistan's counterterrorism and Pakistan's internal challenges, the battle of ideas, although it has become almost a cliche. It looks like we are going back in the war on terror era. But I think that battle of ideas is really taking place. And just to use some of the titles from books which are being discussed in India today, I think Pakistan was very sufficiently conceived. And Pakistan was imagined, so there's no need to reimagine Pakistan. Pakistan was imagined quite sufficiently. And the battle of ideas that Pakistan is at the center of it, that's Pakistan's strength. The ideas of the mystical core in that region, from one shrine to the other, from one religious group, a pluralist to the other, that's Pakistan's strength. And that's linked to the counterterrorism ideas, because that's where Pakistan's strength is. Rather than looking at the strength in other areas, which are important, Pakistan's real strength in its very strong idea. Now, on counterterrorism, why I'm mentioning this pluralist tradition. There's absolutely no doubt that groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, there's some remnants of them, Jaish-e-Mohammed, others I'm just mentioning too. But I want our scholars and especially security experts to think, we know that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has been conducting terrorist attacks after terrorist attacks in Pakistan in the last 1 year. We often judge these through how many suicide attacks. Thank God there are very few suicide bombings now. But the terror that these TTP is creating is even far worse, because they're using blackmail, hijacking, scare, oppression in the areas that they can do. And that is a group where many of the people who Pakistan went after, including Lashkar-e-Taiba and including Jaish-e-Mohammed, many of the folks who thought there's no more space for them, they started trickling to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and to Daesh. So the groups that we want Pakistan to go after, Pakistan is already paying a very heavy price. And I'm saying this, having studied this and researched this for the last 25 years. I'm absolutely not giving Pakistan a clean sheet. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but a lot has been done and Pakistan is paying a heavy price for that. Pakistan needs cooperation and collaboration and understanding from US on this side, on this aspect. How will that go about? Very briefly, one is this platform which we used to have during the war on terror years, which was intelligence sharing platforms, which have gone away from the mainstream collaboration. That's what has to be revived. Assessments about terrorist organizations. There used to be many, not only think tanks, there more collaboration between the security experts on both sides. That, to the best of my knowledge, is no more as vibrant or available. There are not many grants. Pakistan is re-energizing NECTA, the National Counterterrorism Authority. That's where US cooperation on NECTA, on intelligence sharing, on civilian-led counterterrorism strategy. If I have to emphasize one word, and I may have a bias being a former Pakistani police officer 25 years ago, and many of you have heard this from me again and again, but I think this is worth emphasizing because I'm not seeing that transition. The security forces of Pakistan have done a phenomenal job, no doubts about it, no debate on that. It means that they will have their hands full vis-a-vis India, vis-a-vis border with Afghanistan. The investment that should have taken place in Pakistan in peace building, I just saw my friend Kamal Huda, who used to lead this program at State Department and USIP, who had collaborated with all the top Pakistani scholars and heads of the shrines and took them to Turkey and other places. His book on peace building from a religious perspective is very important. On the Pakistani side, there has not been much work on that arena. That's also an area other than the hardcore civilian law enforcement to law enforcement collaboration. Think of this, DHS, FBI, American law enforcement, they are trained to, and their mindset is to talk to the civilian law enforcement, not necessarily always to military intelligence. As good a job Pakistani intelligence might be doing. That's why this investment in civilian law enforcement to deal with counterterrorism is extremely important. And I'll end with this realization, which is very important, that Pakistan and US first need a very honest and fresh conversation, which Elizabeth also mentioned. Without that, this will again go into mistrust. Why is US coming down to this? Why they need certain information on these issues? No, if Pakistan shows commitment, which Pakistan, I'm really convinced, has started showing on counterterrorism internal issues, I think they will find a great partner in US. The US president and others, for them, it's Daesh. It is Islamic State of Khorasan. It is the terrorism threats coming from the broader region. So you'll find this renewed collaboration, cooperation, understanding, trust on this issue that can go a long way. And only Pakistan, which is confident about its roots, my last sentence of this, that's why I was saying the strength of Pakistan is in its idea. As what Sadiq Malik was so articulately saying, where is the China factor? He's right, I think. Pakistan has a capacity to be a bridge builder between East and West. In this radical nationalism, global South voices, which are becoming important, which we Americans here are missing. We are living in some other world. We are missing what is happening in global South. Pakistan, with its strength of these mystical dimensions, pluralism, can play that connecting role. And only a democratic Pakistan, a real democratic Pakistan, no pun intended, will be a real partner for US in this war. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this working now? Can everyone hear me? Great. Yeah, thank you to all of you. So we have under 10 minutes. If anyone has a question, please write it in a note card, bring it over to that side of the room. I'm going to ask one question to the panel. It's a tactical question, but I should say, one of the many notable takeaways from your comments was that we think about US-Pakistan security relations and cooperation opportunities. It's not only about counterterrorism. I think there were some interesting ideas. Cyber was mentioned and others. I think that's important. But now I'm going to come back to counterterrorism, and that's my question about that. A number of very interesting things on that front in recent months. Several of you mentioned the case of the US and Pakistan cooperating on the apprehension of the Abbey Gate ISK member. You look at the main terror groups that threaten Pakistan these days, BLA, TTP, ISK, all of them are US designated terrorist organizations. Very interesting that TTP is now being referred to in US policy documents, including the most recent national intelligence assessment, as a potential future threat to the US, after some time when the expectation was that the US was more concerned about ISK than TTP. So some interesting possible convergences. My question is that the next round of US-Pakistan counterterrorism dialogue is expected to happen at some time this year. It's not exactly clear when. It could be in the next few months, as I understand it. What do you think would be some actionable, could be some useful, actionable agenda points when that dialogue convenes? Anyone like to respond?
Well, certainly from Pakistan's perspective, it's a very important dialogue, the counterterrorism dialogue, as has been rightly pointed out but then obviously it would require capacity building of Pakistan security forces. NECTA, which has also done an excellent job building the capacity of the officials dealing with NECTA, and also the provision of equipment. I think that's something which is of paramount importance. Plus, as you rightly pointed out, that some of these organizations which are posing threats to Pakistan, like TTP, BLA, BRA, etc., they could at some stage pose a threat to the US interests also. So a common kind of a plan of action against these organizations is again something which is of paramount importance. But I think a wider dialogue between Pakistan and India about the kind of encouragement and support that these organizations they receive from third parties, I think that should also be made part of these discussions, because I'm not saying it merely on the basis of hearsay. I'm saying it purely on the basis of some solid and concrete evidence that I have. So all these issues are going to be on the table when US and Pakistan they get together to discuss these issues. Thank you.
Um, I want to say that I agree with Dr. Hassan Abbas that these really quite vigorous terrorist attacks that took place on TTP and ISIS-K across the border largely went unnoticed and unremarked by the international community. And even in the United States, and this shows, I think, how the relationship needs a hard look. People would whisper that Pakistan was getting its just desserts for all their support for these groups in Afghanistan. Again, we really, really need to move past that. But these aren't the groups the Indians are talking about. They're talking about these LET and Jaish Mohammed. You could convince me that these groups have fizzled over the years. That's what the Pakistani government says. But you got to convince a broader audience. And that, I think, should be on the agenda for the CT working group. You have to convince a broader audience. The Indians and intellectuals get up and say, and I heard this, we don't have to provide evidence. This has been happening for years. We have sources and methods, end of discussion. That can't be the final word. So Pakistan has to be more transparent on this.
On this particular issue about the kind of discussion that Pakistan should have with regard to these organizations, let me inform the audience that the FATF team, which had visited Pakistan some time ago, they were able to look at all these aspects and the activities of these organizations and the kind of action that were taken by the government of Pakistan. For instance, all these organizations have already been proscribed. Many of their leaders, they have been arrested, and they have been given long-term sentences by the government of Pakistan. But then one thing which is very important is to understand that whenever Pakistan takes action against these organizations, whether it is TTP, BLA, BRA, or Al-Qaeda, there is always a reaction that comes from these organizations against Pakistani individuals, against Pakistani officials, and also civilian populations. How do we prepare ourselves to deal with that kind of a situation is again something which is of paramount importance, and that obviously requires the capacity building of Pakistani civilian armed forces authorities in order to deal with the kind of situation that we may confront as a result of our actions against these organizations.
Just briefly, I think one element of this that we can't overlook is the evolution of potential terror financing and bringing into conversation the increasing focus on cryptocurrencies that has taken hold in Pakistan. That is a really, really difficult area to regulate, obviously, because of in some ways by design, crypto does inhibit that. And so what are some best practices that can be shared between the two sides in how we approach this evolving challenge, particularly to the extent that Pakistan seems to be moving quite rapidly in the direction of cryptocurrency adaptation?
Thanks so much. I just want to add on this exact point on crypto. Pakistan is investing newly. This is a new found arena, but in US and other places that's being used for criminal activities. And you need a different kind of infrastructure, a parallel investment in cybersecurity. And Pakistan really lags behind in cybersecurity, even at the federal investigation level. One point related on counterterrorism, I think Ambassador is absolutely right. We know about some groups, we know about trickling of some folks, but there are other groups which have some presence. And I think in this scenario, India made a reckless decision by targeting Bhavalpur and Muridke. Those are no more the places, and they were never the places where these are militant trainings taking place. These were seminaries targeting some of the mosques, which are always aligned with these places. I'm just thinking about the terrible challenge the Pakistani law enforcement and intelligence and politicians in those areas have. Will they go and say to the nephew, the innocent grandson of Saeed or any terrorist, or their extended family, their dead bodies were there, they buried those dead bodies. This will create a certain sympathy for them, which will make it difficult for Pakistan to really go after these groups. So it has complicated. India has complicated Pakistan terrorism challenge rather than doing anything creative.
Thank you. We need to wrap up, unfortunately. I would close by saying that we should keep in mind the impact that this recent India-Pakistan conflict could have on U.S.-Pakistan security cooperation moving forward in terms of possible pressure from India on the U.S. to do less with Pakistan in the security context. And it appears that India is going to be going to the FATF and trying to advocate for Pakistan to be returned to the gray list. So definitely worth keeping in mind how that significant conflict of last month could impact these types of conversations moving forward. Well, I want to thank our four speakers. We need to wrap up now, but a round of applause for the contribution. Thank you very much. We can have a quick group photo with the panelists. Testing.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? We're ready to begin here. Thank you, Mr. Hashmi, for that very brief introduction. In the spirit of brevity, because of our limited time, I am going to keep my introductions of our panelists here very short. Again, Mr. Hashmi and I both came from Texas today. And as the saying goes, everything is bigger in Texas. So we've got a nice big panel here and very distinguished speakers, and they're going to comment on our topic for today. So with that, I want to welcome everyone to our final panel discussion, and that's opportunities and obstacles to strengthening U.S.-Pakistan economic and political relations. My name again is Omar Khawaja. It's my honor to serve as your moderator for this panel. The U.S. and Pakistan share a very complex and enduring relationship, one that's formed by strategic considerations, evolving economic interests, and regional geopolitical dynamics. In today's global landscape, both government and private sector actors play a role in shaping a more stable and mutually beneficial partnership. So we are very fortunate to have a distinguished panel of thought leaders from both the policy and business world here with us today. I'm going to begin again with a brief introduction of our panelists. We have first on my right, Ambassador Robin Rafael. I know many of you are policy and think tank frequenters, and everyone knows her profile and background. She has nearly 4 decades of service in U.S. foreign affairs. And our next panelist is Mr. Tahir Javed. Mr. Javed is a distinguished Pakistani-American entrepreneur and philanthropist. He's the founder and CEO of a large healthcare company in Southeast Texas. And beyond his business ventures, he played an active role in civic engagement, particularly leading many congressional delegations to Pakistan. Then we have Minister Khurram Dastagir Khan. We're pleased to welcome him. He is a seasoned Pakistani politician and senior diplomat. He's held several key positions in the federal government of Pakistan, including Minister of Commerce, Minister for Defense, Minister for Foreign Affairs, and most recently, Federal Minister for Energy. Finally, we also have Dr. Naseem Ashraf with us here today. Dr. Ashraf is also a distinguished Pakistani physician. He also served in the government of Pakistan in various roles. He's also an avid cricketer and was the chairman of the Pakistani Cricket Board. And then last and certainly not least, we have Mr. Hasnain Aslam with us. Mr. Hasnain Aslam is the CEO of the Resource Group, and that's an investment equity holding company headquartered here in DC that he co-founded in 2002. And that company employs about 40,000 people across 5 continents, including the United States and Pakistan. And on a personal note, I had the privilege of attending their open house that they convened here in 2004 when I was a young Hill staffer. And it's amazing to see how much growth has happened since then. So with that, I think I'm going to get straight into the questions. And I would like to start with you, Ambassador Rafel. And would you please give us your insight on the current level of the relationship between Pakistan and the United States? Is Pakistan still relevant and important to the United States in the region?
Well, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here, particularly with so many friends and being able to see people in the delegation, many of whom I've known for a very long time. So let me say, of course, Pakistan remains very relevant to the United States, and there are many opportunities to strengthen both the political and economic relations. Let me start with the US side, and many of you have heard me say this many times before. Pakistan is a country of consequence. For all the obvious reasons, whether it's size, location, resources, both human and natural, large military, nuclear weapons, a growing diaspora, powerful diaspora. So it is a country of consequence for the United States. And as a great power, we really need to have a strong and sustainable relationship with Pakistan. As the ambassador said, I hadn't heard this phrase before, it's a mega country. Pakistan is a mega country. So we need a strong bilateral relationship that isn't seen through the eyes of India, Afghanistan, China, and so on. Now, what the US needs to do, a couple of simple things in order to make that more realizable. And number one is to recognize that Pakistan has evolved. We do tend to get stuck in the past. Pakistan gets stuck in the past, we get stuck in the past, as many of the other speakers have recognized. So we need to really move beyond that. And more specifically, we need to send a senior ambassador to Islamabad, and we need to allow our embassy officers to travel more freely around the country. You know, I first served in Pakistan in the 70s and was able to travel everywhere. And that is what helped me really understand key aspects of the country and the people. And that's really important. And it's especially important now that Secretary Rubio has said he's going to restore authority to regional bureaus in the State Department and to embassies. And to be prepared to take on that responsibility, we need to have people who understand the country. On the Pakistan side, of course, you have a large embassy here and it moves around a lot. But people in the embassy move around a lot, and they know people in this town, and they travel to their various consulates and so on. But there has been a certain sterileness in the talking points that Pakistan has been using on key issues. With this delegation, the delegation that's been here this week, we're beginning to see some change in that. But it's really important that there be a fresh look at how you talk about your problems, more creative, and very importantly, more open. I would underscore something that Ambassador Patterson said. You've had a problem for ages with the he said, she said on what's happened with these terrorist organizations that have troubled India. open up the areas where the Indians said they bombed and let people see. I think that kind of thing is really important. And I would also add, I had a very good experience recently in Islamabad with a workshop with the National Defense University, where I saw Pakistan has remarkable outreach. And I think Professor Hassan Abbas mentioned this in terms of the Global South, a whole range of people that I met there. So you have that capability. We need to understand that more. A word about the economic side, which other panelists will speak more about. Of course, there are many, many opportunities for American business. Minerals is definitely the flavor of the decade, but there's also agriculture, there's IT, there's tourism, all sorts of opportunities. And I think, and I will repeat what I've said before, I think at this stage, since there's concern about security and all the rest of it, you need to take an individual approach. Identify an American company, take them by the hand, show them Pakistan. You all know how important that is. And I think that's really, really a key here. Of course, the business climate, you need to keep working on that, making sure that people feel if they make an investment, they'll be able to repatriate their profits. Things won't get stuck in the port as we've seen in past instances and so on. But the individual approach is important. And then I'd make one other point, which is a less positive point, which is, as you all know, without the fundamental structural reforms that we've all talked about for decades, Pakistan is going to be limited in its economic growth and its development. That is key. You know you don't collect enough taxes. You know your bureaucracy needs reform. You know that you need to stop giving special exemptions to, you know, your political compatriots and so on and so forth. And of course, this real kind of change requires stability, political stability, and leadership that is credible to convince people that they need to undergo the short-term pain for long-term gain that real reform will take. I'll close there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mr. Javed, you have been heavily involved in shaping congressional affairs on Pakistan for the past 2 decades. The question I have for you is, how can Pakistan and the United States shift our relations from geopolitics to geoeconomics to ensure a win-win situation for both countries?
Very good question. We all have seen that the president of the country here in the United States, the biggest deal for the president is the tariff. We have seen that. Why he's keep talking about tariff? He's trying to bring the balance in the trade. And if we see this is the focus of the White House. And the White House today is basically taking all the decisions too. So there is no other, you know, State Department has very limited input in it. So if we focus on that, we can do good and better diplomacy through trade, better diplomacy through the business relationship with this administration. So yes, I agree that we should do that. And how? Well, with this trade proposal, I think Pakistan already has a little bit edge. If you look at their competitors like Bangladesh and Vietnam and some other countries they are in a deeper problem with this new tariff deal. Pakistan can take advantage of that. But there are other areas, but before we get into all that, Pakistan should develop an independent body in Pakistan to resolve all the disputes. Well, some other countries has done it. In our last delegation, 3 members of Congress was in Pakistan. Our agenda number 1 was how we can develop more business relationship between the countries. And then we gave a proposal in writing to Pakistan that how they can follow Azerbaijan. They have done it. They developed an independent body where they can resolve their matters. If we do that, when we do that, then we have unlimited opportunities in mineral. There are dozens different companies, they wanted to go to Pakistan. They understand the opportunity in Pakistan, and then we can start that. We had about 24 of Pakistani American successful entrepreneurs were with us. They themselves are very much interested to invest in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan just again approved soybean to import from US just recently. I think they only did one or two different others. Now, I met with the ranking member in Senate, Senator Amy Klobuchar yesterday, and talked about this, that how we can help Pakistan to develop a soybean hub in Pakistan. So we send vessels from here to Pakistan, and then the regional countries buy from Pakistan. This is how we will balance the trade for the United States. So we need to look like one by one, item by item. I was sitting down and asking Mr. Musaddiq Saab, because he's a champion in this energy, served very successfully. So I asked him why we cannot, import LNG from US, which we talked about it. We spent a lot of time. We even talked about making a new terminal in Karachi, invested by US back a few years. So, well, he explained me that they have purchased for several years. Now, I would even go further. That just don't leave right there. Qatar, we have seen working very hard to develop a great relationship with US. We'll let US find out the solution, how we can, purchase from US and then figure out that how, because Pakistan bought pretty much all from Qatar. So I would say this is the time where we need to start looking at not just Pakistan shipping to US, how we can buy from US and develop better relationship, and then we become into the favorite nations where we are not just looking for that we wanted to sell to US, but we will buy and we create the balance in the trade and we grow together. And this is the new thing we need to do. And crypto, we were mentioned a little while ago. I think this is the smartest move Pakistan made in crypto, not just made the council, but I think gave the head of the council as the advisor position, which is almost a minister. So I would say, and then further down, I don't know if it's a public or not, that there are consulting companies, they signed from US. So this is another area where, even the US is still trying to do the regulations here, but we have so many different organizations, they can help Pakistan so you can explain. So they can tokenize, all the new money in Pakistan. And that through crypto, you can increase your trade too. So I think they have figured out Pakistan. I would really appreciate what the new steps Pakistan going outside the norm, and they already into the great move. I think minerals, we already have seen that, and the best thing Pakistan has done in previous days, brought all the Pakistanis who are living abroad. We were probably 2,000 of them, successful Pakistanis. They were there in the convention, which was overseas convention, and they were briefed with all the different details how you can help Pakistan. And I think if we do that more often, we will have better chances to grow the trade between US and Pakistan, not just US and Pakistan, from other countries to Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Javed, for that insight. We'll move on to you, Minister Dastagir Khan. The relationship between any two countries is based on shared mutual interests or shared interests. And this administration in the United States has adopted a decidedly America First policy. What can Pakistan offer by way of benefit to the United States from this administration's perspective? And what then can the United States give Pakistan in return?
Thank you very much. Everyone can hear me. I just want to build upon the argument of Robin Raphael, and I'm delighted to see that this Raphael is still flying, because we downloaded 3 of them. So we're absolutely happy to see her here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop fighting the battles of the past. This is what we are faced here. We have this massive arguments of 20-year US presence in Afghanistan. Actually, we're just still fighting that battle. We are still entrenched in those attitudes of mutual recrimination, of the US not being sufficiently attentive to Pakistan, and Pakistan not being, not listening to the US concerns, and this whole Taliban thing. If we are, topic of the panel is to, the obstacles of how to remove the obstacles. So the first obstacle are the attitudes and recriminations of our recent past. These have to go. I mean, the Afghanistan glasses that we have worn for so long, I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to dump them in the trash. They have to go. We have to, and I'm very fond of saying this, Thomas Paine said, we have it in our power to begin the world over again. So now is a moment in which we can rebuild this US-Pakistan relationship based upon shared concerns, shared opportunities. Grateful to my distinguished colleague, Minister and Senator Sadiq Malik, for pointing out that one of the largest single investments in Pakistan is by the United States. Although it might seem trivial, but Coca-Cola is in every household and has been there for decades. And so there are long-standing US investments in Pakistan that are still thriving, that are still working. So many companies still operate in Pakistan. So the issue is that beginning practically what I saw of something that we faced, beginning now that our head of delegation, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, is here, that horror episode that began in 2007 with this massive upsurge of terrorism in Pakistan. The US then, and now I'm going into the past also, at that time was still supporting Pakistan, but then began to recede from it. And by 2014, it had receded completely. And since then, it's been a decade, just over a decade, that US has not really been, although we have been in discussion, we speak to each other. There was this, again, a short episode of cooperation in Pakistan's support to the US in its withdrawal. There was this episode that still needs to be better known. But when it comes to economic cooperation, we have to sort of see each other with fresh eyes. Although, of course, I can't help recalling back in 2016, when US Trade Representative visited me in my office, I was then Minister of Commerce. And he said, Minister, how to move forward? I said, there's a Janet Jackson song I need to remind you. And he said, what's the Janet Jackson song? I said, what have you done for me lately? So this is a question I'm asking again, in all seriousness. What has the United States done recently for Pakistan, except for recriminations and reminders of the past and clean up your own house? Where is the positivity? The positivity that I see, and again, whatever my personal opinions, is the Trump administration's simply trashing the establishment opinions in Washington. And on the economic front, that new and fresh approach is that used to be that in order to get lower tariffs from the United States, you had to go through this massive rigmarole of a free trade agreement, which took decades or years to negotiate. It's like this, 10-inch thick document, which begins with a bilateral investment treaty. So if the US is willing to sort of put that 10-inch folder aside and say, okay, we can do a quick deal of Pakistan lowering its tariffs on US goods and US lowering its tariffs on Pakistani goods, I think Pakistan will be more than happy to do it. If we don't have to go through that, 10-inch thick agreement that has to be negotiated when poor Korea has spent last decade and a half doing it. I don't know if it's actually done yet. But if the US is willing to sort of approach Pakistan with fresh eyes, offer us a fresh agreement, a quick agreement on mutual reduction of tariffs. So let's not call it an FTA or whatever, a mutual reduction, a massive reduction. Pakistan will be more than willing to do that, and that could, I believe, be a foundation to a relationship between two democracies, between two free markets, and then perhaps slowly we could begin again, as Thomas Paine said, finding new synergies, new areas of cooperation. There is this tremendous now pool of goodwill in terms of the Pakistani diaspora in the United States, which is now increasingly more effective, which is more vocal, which is more articulate in across many states. And that could, help us, although it is helping us already, but it would help us sort of cement those ties. And a lot of those ties don't have to be grand investments. These are, small investments that could take place in smaller towns in Pakistan or smaller towns in the United States. And instead of sort of trapped in that terrorism glass cube, let's come out of that. The cage door is always open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Dastagir Khan. Next question for you, Dr. Naseem Ashraf. As we discuss the obstacles to strengthening US-Pakistan political relations, the security component cannot be ignored. From your perspective, what is the mindset of the leadership of both the United States, of both Pakistan and India, and how does that impact the strengthening of US-Pakistan political relations?
Thank you. I think it's critically important to understand the mindset, because that is obviously what drives policy and state interventions. Before I go to that and explain the Hindutva mindset, which is currently the mindset of the leadership of India, I'd like your indulgence to share with you something I dug up from the congressional record pertaining to an incident that happened 25 years ago in Chitan Singhpura in Kashmir, very similar to the Pahalgam incident that just occurred. So this is a statement that was made on the floor of the House of Representatives by Congressman Ed Towns, a 30-year veteran of the Congress who is now retired from New York, Brooklyn. And Congressman Towns, this is pertaining to the massacre of the 38 Sikhs in Chitan Singhpura on March 20th, 2000, when President Clinton landed in Delhi, similar to Vice President J.D. Vance being in India when Pahalgam took place. And I quote, just 2 lines, I won't read the whole statement. So this is Mr. Ed Towns, the congressman, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, recently former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright wrote a book called The Mighty and the Almighty. Great book, by the way. The introduction to this book was written by former President Bill Clinton. In this introduction, President Clinton writes, during my visit to India in 2000, this book was published in 2006. During my visit to India in 2000, some Hindu militants decided to vent their outrage by murdering 38 Sikhs in cold blood. End of quote. This was published in the hardcover 2006 edition by Harper and Row of Madeleine Albright's book, The Mighty and the Almighty. So when somebody talks today and says about Pakistan and every finger is pointed at Pakistan, I thought it would be interesting to see some past record. And also, because now the mindset of the Indian leadership scares me, frankly. This is not the India of the 50s or the 60s or the 80s, 90s even. This is Hindutva, and Hindutva is akin and synonymous with Nazism. I'll prove it to you. I'll show it to you. And so what scares us, because that's how that area is being seen. And I think the United States, our relationship is critical in actually overcoming this mindset. And I'll also share with you that this doesn't have to be. Just as recently as 10, 15 years ago, we almost came this close, as Ambassador Jilani mentioned, we came this close to a full peace treaty with India under Musharraf, with the 4 points of, well, you can call it anything, you don't have to call it Musharraf. But I'll come to that in a minute. So this is the congressional record of President Bill Clinton saying that this attack was carried out by Hindu militants.
By the way,
You don't have to take my word. I'll forget my train of thought if you don't mind. Actually, two more pieces of evidence on this and then I'll get on. For Chitan Singhpura, under a lot of pressure, the Indian government in 2005 finally appointed an investigating committee. And one of the members of that committee was at that time a 2-star Indian general, later a 3-star general by the name of K.S. Gill, if you recall. And General Gill gave his final conclusions and a written statement to Home Minister Advani, confirming and proving that the attack on the Sikhs was carried out by none other than Indian security forces. This was K.S. Gill, and that is his interview with the British television is still available on YouTube if you want to see it. I wish I could have shown it here to you today. Not only that, later, when Advani Saab had 5 people picked up and summary trial and executed and buried, a brave Indian journalist from London, Pankaj Misra.
Yeah.
Pankaj Misra went to the Supreme Court of India and obtained an order to exhume the bodies of the 5 so-called terrorists who were executed for committing the Chitan Singhpura massacre. And he proved that the bodies did not belong to the IDs and they did not match. The IDs were different from the bodies. So this was 2000. Fast forward, I'll just very quickly go over 2002, massive anti-Muslim riots and killings in the Gujarat, where the Modi butcher was on that basis denied and his American visa was revoked. And subsequently, but this then started becoming more and more a state-driven or a state complicit thing. And I'll say that with full conviction, unfortunately. In 2002, in Gujarat, in the so-called Gulbarg Society massacre, and then the Best Bakery case, where a Muslim MP was targeted and lynched by the mob. Ehsan Jafri was lynched by the mob in India. In Assam 2012, massive riots and over 400,000 Muslims, Christians, and other minorities were displaced.
Dr. Ashraf, we have
This
about
is, yeah.
10 minutes left. I just want to make sure we give all of the
Let me
panelists-
just, okay,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
wrap it up.
Thank you.
So point is, this stems from the Hindutva mindset. And this Hindutva mindset is actually same as Nazism. And this stems from their core philosophy of Akhand Bharat. Those of you who are old enough like me to remember, Akhand Bharat means unified India, greater India, unfortunately. And Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, up to Myanmar, this is part of their map. And I'm going to stop with this. This map of Akhund Bharat, this map of Akhund Bharat is on the new parliament building
In
of
Delhi.
India that was inaugurated in
In Delhi.
2023. It is sitting inside their parliament on a wall mural, which shows that there is only going to be one India, and the religion and the cultural lives and the social beliefs and lifestyles of everybody living in this. If you want to live in this, you have to be a Hindu and dominated by the Hindu mindset, unfortunately. But as I said, this is not to say that there cannot be peace. There has to be peace. As the delegation has so eloquently and classically pointed out, Pakistan has never sought war. My only point is that for the United States, allow me to say, as a Pakistani American, that it would be a moral cop-out not to look at the root cause of all of this. Why do these people keep fighting every 4 years? It's not just a moral cop-out, it's an appeasement of a larger bully who just keeps on going. And unless this appeasement is stopped, there will be the same kind of, the world will pay the same price as we did in the 30s.
Thank you,
I'll
Dr.
stop there
Ashraf.
for time, and if
Thank-
you have another question, I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next question, Mr. Hasnain Aslam, is for you. We do have a hard stop at 12, so please comment, and then hopefully we can get to some other questions. Given your experience managing a large multinational company that has investments in both the United States and Pakistan, people investments, infrastructure investments, what do you see as the most significant challenges or opportunities for increased trade between the United States and Pakistan?
First of all, can you all hear me? Because I don't have a mic.
Yes.
Yeah, all the way back. Okay, so I think I can speak without a mic.
Should we try this one here?
Yeah, it's okay. If you can hear me, then I'm good with it. So, so thank you for the question. I'll come to that in a second, and I'll also address what Dr. Naseem was saying. You were right about the book, but important to mention that that is no longer in the book because the Indian lobby convinced President Clinton to edit it and take it out. So it was
Yes.
only in the first edition, and it no longer exists.
It was in the hard edition, and the soft
Yeah.
cover, it was removed.
It was removed.
So you have to find that book for us.
I have the book. I have the
We
original.
have to preserve it for future generations.
That's-
I have the book. I have the book.
That is the power of the lobby, by the way. I want to first thank the visiting delegation from Pakistan, very diverse, very eloquent, and very encouraged to see that you have led with a message of peace, albeit with confidence, strength, and dignity. And that's the right message. I think while I agree with everything Dr. Naseem Ashraf said, I would not suggest that we package that way to the Trump administration. It is true, but we have to package it in the form of a positive message and in the form of a deal that we can cut with this administration. So just stepping back, and I'll come to trade in a second. If you look at India and Pakistan, I think people forget that nearly a quarter of the world's population, 1.7 billion people, live in India and Pakistan. And all of us have a choice to make, be it Indians, be it Pakistan, be it Americans. Do you want to see war? Do we want to have this region be known for nuclear weapons? Or do we want it to be the future economic powerhouse of the world? We saw Europe in World War II. They were brutal wars, but then now there's European Union, and they have ushered in peace and prosperity. So we have Russia and Ukraine, and we have the European Union. We have to decide today what path we want to take. And this is not just for us, it's for the whole world to decide. Because, we can keep arguing with India about all of these things, but unless we can get both parties to the negotiating table and solve all outstanding issues with diplomacy and dialogue towards sustained peace, we're going to be stuck in this for the next 75 years as well, right? And as a representative of the business community, we're always pro-peace. Businesses thrive and people prosper when there is peace and stability. It's the same for the business businesses on the India side is the same for the businesses on the Pakistan side. We both want to attract foreign investment and US investment. So I think all of us who are in DC, we should become ambassadors of sustainable peace, whether you're American, whether you're Indian, whether you're Pakistani. And then, of course, there's some challenges, but fundamentally, I think we should lead with a message of peace. And I think that will resonate very well with the Trump administration, because as we all know, President Trump is auditioning for the Nobel Peace Prize. And as somebody said, I think you said this, or Chairman Bilawal said, this might be the low-hanging fruit amongst the three conflicts that are out there. And with his leverage and muscle, he can facilitate a resolution of that. Now, coming to trade, I'll be honest, even though US is Pakistan's largest trading partner, it has not been a priority of the US to trade with Pakistan. It's a small, US exports $2 billion to Pakistan. It really doesn't, surrounding error. But this conflict has provided a silver lining, which is that the president of the US has made multiple statements about the opportunities of trade with Pakistan and how he wants to reward Pakistan and India for the ceasefire. So we have a unique opportunity directly offered by the US president, and we need, as Pakistan, we need to seize that opportunity. And I think we should come to the US with a deal with big numbers, and in my view, it should have three components. One, get rid of all the tariffs. We only import $2 billion. Tariffs don't, it will not make any difference. Two, focus on the trade deficit, which is a big issue for the Trump administration. $3 billion is not a large number. If we make a list of all of the things Pakistan would like to import from the US, whether it's soybeans that Tahir Javed was talking about, whether it's defense equipment, whether it's a whole number of other things, it's a very small gap that we can resolve easily. And we can show a 3-year path to resolving it. Three, look at what US needs from Pakistan. We talked about precious rare earth minerals. Pakistan has that in abundance. So we should take a page out of the Qatar book, out of the Saudi book, out of the UAE book, and say, over the next 10 years, we can offer you a $100 billion deal. 100 billion over 10 years is 10 billion years, some that large, that alone, the rare earth minerals alone can cover that. So we should think like business people and say, okay, what can we sell to the Trump administration? A deal that addresses all of their concerns, trade imbalance, tariffs, and rare earth minerals, and gives a, we don't have the resources to offer $1 trillion deal, but we can offer a $100 billion deal over 10 years. If we take that approach towards this deal-oriented administration, I think we can get something done. And like Minister Saab was saying, instead of a 10-inch binder, this could be a 5-page agreement that could be done within a month, right? So I would encourage everybody to think like entrepreneurs and think like business people, because that's what the Trump administration's approach is. Now, on what Pakistan has to offer, and then we'll wrap up. I represent the technology industry. We have 40,000 people around the world. 9,000 of them are in Pakistan. They're serving the top US clients: Amazon, Walmart, AT&T, FedEx, Western Union, Allstate Insurance. It was very difficult to get these clients to Pakistan. It took years, but once they come, they don't leave. Why? Because we are providing them the best quality, and we have operations in the Philippines. We even have 50 people in India. We have thousands of people in Jamaica, thousands of people in the US. By far the best quality, Pakistan. And at the lowest cost, 20% lower than the Philippines, 25% lower than India. So there's a tremendous opportunity for US businesses, but we can't expect them to come. We as Pakistanis and Pakistani Americans have to pitch those opportunities to the businesses, and just as we have done, convince them to try out Pakistan, and once they see the economic benefit, they will stay, right? Similarly, agriculture offers tremendous opportunities. Last thing you asked was about the challenges, and there are challenges. First is the perception of safety and security. We still have, Ambassador Raffel would know, we still have trade advisory. It's hard, it's a difficult thing for us to convince US investors to visit Pakistan. And I think the onus is on Pakistan to address some of those perception challenges. Second, robust legal framework and law and order. And I have one point after this. Pakistan has already signed the UN Convention or Enforcement foreign arbitral awards. But, and we've dealt with this. In practice, while they were signatory, it's difficult. So any investor coming in wants to make sure that they have legal protection, fair and efficient justice, and a robust legal framework. I think, again, we can do more there, right? And finally, we can do a better job of marketing and PR. If you think back to 2002, India did this campaign of Incredible India. All of us saw it. You know, we should market our country. I was speaking at a conference in India in 2006. The different states were competing with each other to pitch to us, even though I was Pakistani, to open their business in India. In 2005, we opened our operations in Pakistan, in the Philippines. Started with 3,000, now we have 12,000 people. Started with 300 people, now we have 12,000. The ambassador came to our office saying, we've heard you want to do business in the Philippines, here in Washington. What can we do to help? And we said, well, it would be great if the Prime Minister, Gloria Arroyo, could come and open. She came, only 300 people, make a big deal, and it made us feel so good to do business in the Philippines. I think we can learn from some of these countries and do a better job to make Pakistan more attractive, more inviting as an investment destination. And that will encourage trade and more businesses to invest in Pakistan, including American businesses.
With that, thank you so much, Mr. Aslam. With that, I'd like to ask everyone to give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you all the panelists for a great discussion. So it's the last segment, the speech of Chairman Pakistan People's Party, head of the delegation for Foreign Minister, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. But I would like to invite Tahir Javed. In 30 seconds, he should introduce the Bilawal Bhutto Zardari.
Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting any time, I wanted to introduce a leader who carries a remarkable legacy, but also brings a clear and passionate voice for modern, democratic, and globally engaged Pakistan. Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is the chairman of Pakistan People's Party, and he has served as foreign minister, representing Pakistan on major international platforms with strength and clarity. He is part of the new generations of leaders who understand that Pakistan's future is in smart diplomacy, economic progress, and the empowerment of its youth. Please put your hands together and welcome Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari.
I think we've just gotten to afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back in DC and back here at the Middle East Institute, this time with a very different mission. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, following the conflict between India and Pakistan, recently formed this delegation and gave us a mission. And our mission is peace. Peace through dialogue and diplomacy with our arch rival, India. And you might ask us, then why are we here in Washington and not speaking to our adversaries? Well, they refuse to talk. And we feel that as a friend of India, the United States would be able to speak to them as a friend and explain to them that this is not in their interest. So I don't, if you see the sort of delegation from the Indian side, or even just the Indian government, I suppose our own government, they represent an older generation. But what I want to ask them is, do they want to damn my generation to the same fate? We fought generation over the issue of Kashmir. Last decades, we've had the issue of terrorism. I was going to say take us close to war, but actually no, take us to all-out war. And now they've opened a new front. The Indian government, in violation of the UN Charter, have threatened to cut off the water supply for 240 million Pakistanis. So now they're damning my generation future generations, not only to fight over Kashmir, not only to go to full-out war whenever there's a terrorist attack, but now we're damning future generations of Indians and Pakistanis to fight over water. This is why I am so confident, I am so passionate in our cause. I refuse to damn the people of my country, and I bear no ill will to the people of India. I refuse to damn the youth of India, that my children and their children will fight over water, over Kashmir, over terrorism. We just got through a 5-day war. And while by all metrics, the Indians won't admit this, but by all metrics, be it the kinetic, military component, Pakistan won. We downed their planes. They're bigger than us. They're stronger than us. But we were able to repel their assault diplomatically. India's diplomatic position, the hyphenation, the rehyphenization of India and Pakistan. Donald Trump didn't rehyphenate India and Pakistan. Pakistan didn't rehyphenate India and Pakistan. India rehyphenated India and Pakistan by launching this stupid war. Kashmir, before this conflict, in violation of international law, of course, in violation of the UN Charter, of course, in violation of the promises they made to the people of Kashmir. But the Indian line was that Kashmir is an internal issue for India. Well, when President Trump talks about mediating peace and resolving the issue of Kashmir, it becomes an international issue. The Indians also now say, as a result of this 5-day war, that Kashmir is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. So militarily, your net security provider couldn't secure their own planes and have left South Asia, and by extension the rest of the world, given that we're two nuclear powers, less secure. And the new normal that they want to impose on us, that if there's a terrorist attack in India, Indian-occupied Kashmir, they don't need proof, it means war. That means that if there's a terrorist attack in Pakistan, so we also have to go to war to India. So that leaves all of us in a very precarious situation. We've got a ceasefire, we welcome that. But we've lowered the threshold of conflict so much that any madman, can you imagine? Okay, we have a specific context of terrorism, but terrorism has all shapes and forms. Can you imagine that logic sort of here in the United States? That any wild act of violence by someone from another country would mean immediately you launch into war. This exposes India, it exposes Pakistan to an extremely dangerous situation. Not only do we not take on the terrorists, because we're taking on each other rather than the people who actually conduct these attacks, but we also endanger the lives of both our countrymen. And the way we saw the nuclear escalation, the way that the escalation ladder rose so drastically during this conflict, it's not too much of a stretch of the imagination to think that by the time there's another conflict, perhaps there won't be time for President Trump to intervene before things go horribly, horribly wrong. So when I say we are here to pursue peace, it is because We believe it is the only viable path forward, not only for India and Pakistan, but also the international community. India may have 1,000 issues with Pakistan. But if you're going to refuse to talk to Pakistan, those issues will remain. Obviously, in this case, the terrorist attack that took place in Indian-occupied Kashmir, this time round, Pakistan had absolutely no role whatsoever. We offered an international impartial inquiry immediately. India refused. If the facts were different, the United States policy in this context would also be very different. The truth of the matter is we had nothing to do with this. But terrorism is a problem. I know that the US is left from Afghanistan and there are other issues in the world, but just because you're gone, it doesn't mean that terrorism's over. In fact, we're in a far more precarious situation today than we ever were before. The US withdrawal from Afghanistan has left a vacuum in that country. And I'm not even saying that goes so far as to doubt the intent of the Afghan regime. Let's give that sort of, let's say, no, they too are committed to ensuring their soil is not used for terrorism. It doesn't change the fact they do not have the capacity. They don't have a standing army. They don't know CT. The US, Pakistan, we've developed this tool, this skill, this aspect of our policing, our military, over the course of 2, 3 decades, even more. And there is a soup of terrorist groups in Afghanistan. Before, when NATO was there, and there was there was the Afghani government or the Karzai government, whatever, varying degrees of effectiveness, but you had all of NATO's might, plus that's the government in place, hounding these groups, fighting these groups. You didn't eliminate them. We never accused you of tolerating them or supporting them. The fact is that terrorism and combating terrorism is an ongoing process. Once you've left, okay, maybe they took a break for like 6 months. Then they're figuring out what else to do. And there's groups in Afghanistan that are problematic for Pakistan, be it the BLA, the TTP, all of these groups enjoy the ability to function, and not only function, what's sort of more alarming than just the functioning, it's the ability to coordinate and collaborate amongst each other, where seemingly disparate groups without any ideological linkage, religious extremists and separatist groups, they coordinate to conduct attacks in Pakistan. But they're not the only terrorist groups in Afghanistan. There's Daesh, there's the ETIM, and I could go on and on. In fact, the groups that India has a concern about, that Pakistan, according to the FATF procedures, have taken appropriate action against, their leadership during the original Afghan jihad, the Mujahideen phase, when we didn't call them terrorists, we called them the Mujahideen, and to quote Ronald Reagan, the moral equivalent to George Washington. So in that phase of our history, our collective history, even the groups that India has a concern about, I'm talking about LET, LEG, those groups, their leadership fought that war as Mujahideen. Then when you up and left after that war, they had nothing to do. They were told that this is the right thing to do, that this was the moral thing to do. American tax dollars went into educating them that this is what you have to do. So once the war was over, they went and picked up in their mind what was another just cause and turned their guns from one border to the next. As we stand today, Pakistan is combating a resurgence of terrorism in Balochistan, in Pakhtunkhwa. At the moment, this year, the rate at which terrorist attacks have taken place in Pakistan, if we continue on this trajectory, this year will be the bloodiest year in Pakistan's history. Can you imagine that? That means there are more terrorist attacks taking place today than after 2001, than the bloody spell we saw following 2007. And we have evidence that we have presented at the United Nations to the US government, dossier after dossier, of India's involvement in supporting, be it the BLA, and even the TTP and other organizations that conduct attacks in Pakistan. It's not only that we've supported your evidence, India has admitted this. In their joint communique with Pakistan at Sharm el-Sheikh, they've admitted their role in supporting these groups in Balochistan. In 2017, but the date's probably wrong, probably earlier than that, Pakistan caught an Indian army officer, Kulbhushan Yadav, in Balochistan. He is still in our custody. 16. Thank you. He is still in our custody. Does that mean that every terrorist attack means I have to go to war with India? Before I came here, there was a terrorist attack in Balochistan. A school bus was targeted by this BLA Majid Brigade nexus. Children were killed. Pakistan wants to combat these groups. In order to do so, we require coordination, cooperation, regional, international. We need to deal with the new reality in Afghanistan. We need to help the government. I know it doesn't sound good, but help the government build capacity, or at least figure out how we're going to deal with this. You can't leave a vacuum unattended. And I believe that they need to build up their capacity, and we need to facilitate their building their capacity. We need to understand the concerns of Pakistan, that while we're combating terrorism, this menace is increasing. At the moment, these groups have also started targeting foreign citizens in Pakistan, our foreign guests in Pakistan. My nightmare scenario is it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet, and the incident in Indian-occupied Kashmir had nothing to do with us. But my nightmare scenario is that either these groups are attacking us in Pakistan, or these groups who function within Afghanistan, but the border is now more porous than it was before, because pre the fall of Kabul, it was manned on both sides. Pakistan manned it on one side and Afghanistan manned it on the other. And while now Afghanistan is also a little bit manning their side, it's nowhere near the scale as it was before. So we have a porous border. These groups have targeted foreign nationals within Pakistan. It's not too much of a stretch of imagination that any one of those groups in that soup, be it ETIM, be it Daesh, be it LET, all these other alphabetical conglomerates, if they, heaven forbid, decide to launch an attack in another country. If we continue to politicize the issue of terror, to further our own narrow aims, it undermines the actual fight against terror. So Pakistan would like to pursue peace with India in our interests and in their interests. In order for us to effectively combat terror, regional cooperation, international cooperation will ultimately be incredibly important. We cannot achieve a permanent peace without addressing the issue of Kashmir. And I know that it gets India's back against the wall. I don't just say that to fluster them, but other than my strong-held, impassioned belief that the people of Kashmir deserve their right to self-determination as enshrined by the UN Security Council resolutions, even if India doesn't believe in those things. If India wants to combat terrorism, it's going to have to deal with Kashmir. Because it is not true that every terrorist attack that will take place there will come from Pakistan or they'll fall from the sky. Indians, Kashmiris will provide the India, there are no Indian Kashmir, Kashmiris, Indians separately, especially those facing suppression and repression like the ones in Maqbuza, Kashmir, will react. They will be the cannon fodder for either an existing terrorist group or some new terrorist group or some future terrorist group. So we have to talk about Kashmir with India because it is the root cause of all our trouble. But also because if India is serious about combating terrorism, they have to create a more conducive environment in Kashmir. You can't cage an entire population and expect bulldoze their houses, blind them with pellet guns, and expect them not to react. So we have to talk terror. We have to talk Kashmir. And finally, we have to talk water. No civilized country can endorse this move. In the age of climate challenges that are to come, water scarcity and water wars, or anyway, used to be a theory. India shutting off Pakistan's water supply is laying the foundations for the first nuclear water war. We have said that cutting off our water supply would be an act of war. We don't say it in a jingoistic manner. We don't say it with any relish. It is an existential crisis for us. Any country on the planet, no matter their size, their strength, or their ability, would fight for their survival and fight for their water. India must abide by the Indus Water Treaty. The United States, other countries across the world must take a firm stance that they will not allow India to not only violate the Indus Water Treaty, but take their threat forward. You cannot allow this precedent to be set in the Pakistan context, because we'll fight the first war, but it won't be the last. If India is allowed to cut us our water, that means that every upper riparian with hostilities to a lower riparian now has a carte blanche. And if our dialogue and diplomacy and pursuit of peace are to be successful, if we are to talk to India, positive dialogue with India, make new arrangements, new deals, perhaps even new treaties with India, then surely they first must abide by the old treaties and take back their decision vis-a-vis the Indus Water Treaty. India has belligerently refused. They refused cooperation on terror, you saw it. The Prime Minister of Pakistan said, let's have an investigation. They said no. They refused President Trump's mediation, currently refusing dialogue. All that means is there'll be more terrorism, there'll be more war, and there'll be no peace. The Prime Minister of India and his government may want to damn his people to this fate. I refuse to damn my people, and I refuse to damn the people of India to this fate, which is why my delegation and I will be traveling from capital to capital with a simple message. We want peace. We need your help. Later today, we'll continue our activities, engaging with officials here in Washington, D.C. From here, we go to London. From London, we go to, I want to say Paris, but maybe Brussels and Strasbourg also, to Europe. And we'll keep at it until our neighbors realize that it's in their interest and in our interest to sit down across the table and figure out our issues. There's no military solution to any of our problems. And there's so much more that we can achieve together. then we can achieve a lot. Surely, India and Pakistan working together, we can eradicate terrorism from the subcontinent. India and Pakistan working together can create that conducive environment in Kashmir where the people that live there can live there free from repression, suffocation, and actually see prosperity. India and Pakistan's cooperation obviously would require the waters to flow freely, but but it should lead to broader cooperation. The challenge of climate change and water scarcity is a challenge for Pakistan. It's also a challenge for India. How are we going to face the coming decade? We've already experienced devastating floods, droughts, the manifestation of climate change in various forms. I believe Pakistan and India working together can meet that challenge as well. If we don't rise to this occasion, then let there be no mistake. The blame for the carnage, the devastation, the scourge that war leaves will lie at the footsteps of Narendra Modi and his government. You've heard today, I don't want to go into repetition, litigate our views on each other. We think they're extreme. They think we're extreme. But I mean, here in America, you witness it. There's Pakistani diaspora, there's there's Indian diaspora. We're not going to war on your streets. In the UK, there's a Pakistani diaspora, there's an Indian diaspora. We get on together very well. The problem within India and Pakistan at the moment is there's such a cutoff of any form of interaction. It's not just that our governments aren't talking to each other, our artists aren't talking to each other, we don't have the same people-to-people contact, business-to-business, we don't trade. I'll end on that note. Trade. Your president is engaging in trade discussions with both India and Pakistan. And hopefully he's going to get you a big, beautiful trade deal with both India and Pakistan. But if India and Pakistan aren't trading amongst each other, then there's only a limit about how beautiful that trade deal is going to be. If India and Pakistan are not only trading amongst each other, then the economic benefits for your trade deal enhance. If India and Pakistan are trading amongst each other, it also means we allow transit trade, which increases the effectiveness of whatever trade deal is about to come about. And ultimately, if we are able to achieve peace in South Asia, unlock our economic potential. I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk here about the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and obviously it's great being able to trade that way. But how fantastic would it be able to all the way from Pakistan all the way to the ports of Chittagong in Bangladesh? We'd have an India-Pakistan economic corridor. So there's prosperity for our people, for their people, and peace in our area. I don't underestimate the challenges we face. India has clearly decided to favor unilateralism. It is inspired by hegemons all over the world. It believes that it has a license to conduct itself outside of international law. And our hope is your President Trump. So wish us luck. I'm very grateful to all of you for organizing this interaction for myself and our delegation. We've received a very positive response from everybody we have engaged with, and I look forward to meeting you all again soon. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Chairman PPP, our keynote speaker, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Thank you very much for taking out time today and showing here with your presence. So I request you to have a lunch. Lunch is ready. And thank you again. Thank you, Maheen, and thank you, Dr. Sexton and Middle East Institute for organizing and collaborating this organization.